Okay, let's talk about managing permissions in Exchange Online. Now, I'm already in my Exchange Admin Center, so I'm going to go to my roles. And under my roles, I've got admin roles, user roles, and then Outlook web app policies. And we'll take a look at all three of them. So let's start with admin roles. Admin roles allow us to give permission to users to do other administrative functions. And here we have a list of admin roles. I'm going to pick one. Let's do information protection. There we go. So I'm going to pick this, and then I can look at my permissions. This general gives me a little bit of an idea of what it's for. The permissions is going to give me a whole list of permissions that are available, and I'm going to scroll down and see the ones that are checked, and these are permissions that are assigned to this role. So once I viewed all my permissions, read the description, said, yes, this is what I want, then I can assign the permission to somebody. And the way I do that, or assign the role to somebody, more appropriately, maybe say assign somebody to the role. So I'm going to click add, and then I'll put in the name of the person that I want. I'm going to do Bilbo, and then you click the add button. I'm not actually going to do it because I'm not adding this permission to this user. But I'd click the add button, and then that would add that user to that role, and then they would get the permissions that are part of that particular role. Okay, fairly straightforward. Now, I can't really modify permissions that much because these are, I mean, even though it says, I can, if I try to save that, it's going to come back and give me an error because these are preset roles. They're predefined. But what I can do is I can copy a role group, and that's what I would do here. So I'd copy a role group, and then it would give me those permissions, and then I can modify them. It would give me a new name, and it would now be a preset. It's just copied off of one of these. Or I can uncheck that and just add a role group from scratch. And I'm not going to save it, but I'm going to go ahead and walk through the settings. So I'm going to call this a test role, and then I'd set a description and then the right scope, and I'm going to go with the default right scope because I don't have any other right scope set. So I'm going to click next, and then I would select the permissions that I wanted for the role and click next, and then members if I wanted to, and then next, and then add the role group. And this lets me go back and edit any of these things. Then I click my add role group, and that would create the role for me. So if you have security roles that you want that don't necessarily fit something that's predefined, you can either modify the predefined or create your own. So fairly straightforward. That's how we're going to manage our administrative roles. And this is primarily used when I want to give somebody else permission to do some administrative functions, but perhaps not all of them. And that's why we use these administrative roles. Okay, let's take a look at user roles. So I'm going to click here under user roles, and I have one, the default role assignment policy. I can create a new assignment policy here. By default role assignment policy, I can look at my general settings, and it gives me the name and the description, and fairly straightforward. And then the permissions. And so for each of these permissions, so contact information, my contact information, if you hover over the little information icon there, it tells you what it does. This role enables individual users to modify their contact information, including addresses and phone numbers. And all of this is going to be what users are allowed to do in their own mailbox. Notice, by the way, only one of these really is not managed or is not set by default, and that's my mailbox delegation. This role allows administrators to delegate mailbox permissions. Okay, so you can take permissions away from here if needed, but most of the time we don't care about that too much. Okay. Now, let's take a look at how these are assigned to users. And that's actually, before we do that, let's do this. Let's go to our Outlook web app policies. And we're going to see a default policy. And then here's where we create a new one if we don't like the default one. But let's start by looking at the default one. So the name, the access, do we allow file access? Do we allow offline access? And then features. What features do we want? And you'll see communication. And this is going to be when a user accesses something through the Outlook web app. Okay. that wasn't clear at the beginning. So what do we want them to be able to access? What do we want them to not be able to access? And again, you're going to notice by default, just about everything is selected. So if you want to be more restrictive with either the Outlook mailbox policy or the OWA Outlook Web Access mailbox policy or the user roles policy, you can set new policies that are going to be more restrictive. And then what you would need to do is you would need to assign that to a specific user. So we're going to do that in the recipient's mailboxes. And I'm going to open up Bilbo Baggins here. And then from here is where I can set, under the mailbox, I can right here manage mailbox policies. And you're going to see mailbox policies, mailbox delivery restriction. Okay, this is the retention policy. But if I click on the mailbox policies, you're going to see several of them defined here. And this is where we can set different policies. One of the places where we can set different policies for what people are allowed to do and not allowed to do in their mailbox. So as you go through here and modify the policies, right here is the email app settings. Under the email app settings, this is where I set my Outlook web policy. So the idea is you build your policies, and then once you have your policy built, you can come into the mailbox, and in the mailbox, through the different tabs, you can set your policies that are going to control what people are allowed to do and not allowed to do with their mailbox. Okay, there we go. That is a quick overview of how we are going to manage security in a Exchange Online environment.